So last night I saw Venom: The Last Dance, directed by Kelly Marcel, written by Kelly Marcel in her directorial debut, starring Tom Hardy, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Rhys Ifans as a van-traveling hippie out west, picking up right where Venom 2 left off, with Eddie Brock dealing with the fallout of what happened with Carnage, and there's a certain invasion that's coming to Earth on the orders of Null, who wants to unleash his minions on the planet Earth and take it over. To really sum it up, I don't really think I could add anything to the table that people aren't already saying by now. If you're the kind of person who enjoys this type of comic book film, this is definitely going to be the movie for you. If you don't like Venom, or if you're not interested in Tom Hardy as an actor, I know some people who do not care for Tom Hardy, my own mother, believe it or not, that's a different story, then you're not going to like this one. The reason why you go to Venom is because not only does he have some kind of a big following in the Marvel Comics community, but he's also portrayed by Tom Hardy, who in his own way has been able to draw in a big crowd of some kind. And it's the dynamic between Eddie and Venom that really holds the film together, along with its two predecessors. And a lot of people have said that they want to see this dynamic continue in a different kind of Venom movie, instead of the other stuff that is sprinkled throughout on the side. Do we really care about the secret lab scientist plot that there's some Venom projects going on? I don't really care. The only exception is the last film, Let There Be Carnage, because you had Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, and I thought that was a very spot-on choice, although I didn't entirely love what they did with Carnage. Just the idea of Woody Harrelson as the character was enough to get me intrigued. And seeing Tom Hardy doing his Tom Hardiness, if you really like his work, that's more or less going to get you into the theater. Okay, you need to come out right now because I'm feeling super vulnerable right here. Marriage trouble already. Tom Hardy in this film he's Tom Hardy. I know his... I'm laughing at the thought of my mom just rolling her eyes at me listening to this. My mom does not like Tom Hardy. Ever since The Revenant, when he just mumbled his way through, she has never been on board with him. But there are some really touching moments between Eddie and the symbiote, evoking a certain kind of a charming sentimentality of the bond that we've come to expect after the last two films. And in its own right, by the time it wrapped up in the finale, I found it somewhat touching, to be honest with you. Does that make it a good movie? Absolutely not. The tone and vibe is very similar to the last two films, although it's a lot more lighthearted and energetic. I mean, this is out west and we're in the desert, so I guess that does account for the more optimistic flair that you want to offer here, and maybe somewhat of a happy and hopeful note to end on. This is not a surprise coming from me, though. The movie is very, very disjointed, and having looked up the production timeline, this was right in the middle of the Hollywood strike that happened last year, and that has unfortunately put a huge damper on this, because it literally feels like everything was stitched together improperly at the very last second. They literally probably stopped right in the middle of production when the strike happened, and once the strike was over, then they had to pick up the pieces. Is that the production team's fault? I don't think I would go that far, but even then, just like with the other Sony Spider-Man universe films, these spin-offs that they've been producing for the last several years, they have a bunch of people behind the camera who I wouldn't really say are that qualified at their jobs. If earlier this year with Madam Web is any indication, yes, I know, making a movie's not easy, but that doesn't mean that you don't put any effort into it. Besides maybe Tom Hardy, I get the vibe that nobody ever really gave a crap that they were making something like this. I'd be sounding like a broken record talking about how Sony's approach to this whole thing has just been really effed up, but seriously guys, you need to stop making this stuff. Focus on the MCU with Tom Holland. And maybe you could, if you're willing to compromise with Marvel in this, find a way to weave some of these characters into the upcoming trilogy. Chiwetel Ejiofor is around as this high-ranking general who's part of this project of Area 55, which is hiding under the Area 51 region. He's an actor that I've really respected from other projects like 12 Years a Slave, or The Martian, or even Four Brothers. On my end, the problem's not with him. It's the characterization on the page. It shifts constantly. He's very serious in one scene, then in another scene, he's the complete opposite. And that's just one of the many symptoms of the disjointedness of this entire picture. Then there's a certain character who's a scientist who has some kind of backstory involving her brother dying from a lightning strike. But that plot doesn't really go anywhere. Well, I guess we're veering into spoiler territory, but she gets infected with one of the symbiotes and she turns into a female symbiote named Agony, which I thought for a second was Scream because of the Venom hair that comes out of her head. I remember Scream from last year's Spider-Man 2 from Insomniac, and I thought, oh my god, that's Scream. They finally did it in live action. Government laboratory stuff, I could not care less about that. I wanted to fall asleep. Though I do like the moments that Eddie shares with Rhys Ifans' character and his family as they're driving through the desert, singing along with David Bowie's Ground Control to Major Tom. Space Oddity. I don't know why I forgot the name of that. It's been one hell of a week, guys. I apologize. I'm still kind of out of it right now. And just like with its two predecessors, it has its share of hokiness, particularly when they throw Miss Chen, the store owner from the last two, into this random scene in Vegas where she's playing blackjack and then she dances to a disco song in her hotel room. That whole scene just felt kind of out of place on my end, just like the rave karaoke scene in the last one. As for the Venom horse, I've seen some crazier things in fiction, but this one takes the cake. It is right up there. It was a pretty bold move in that respect, so I like that they went for it. But then he has to infect a fish and a frog during a sequence where Eddie is being chased by scuba operatives. Once it infected the frog, I thought, done. I'm done. I'm done. I am done. As for the main antagonist, Noel, he is treated like an afterthought throughout the entire thing. He never shows up to cause any havoc. The exposition dump that they throw in the beginning of the film gives you the idea that this guy means serious business. But even by the time the finale comes around, nothing ever comes to fruition on that area. And there's a mid-credit scene that teases that he might show up again, and then there's a post-credit scene which I guess indicates that the symbiote survived the explosion. Whether or not this is the last time we'll see Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock, never say never, I suppose, especially with today's Hollywood landscape. But this is Sony. Given their track record, are you really that shocked? I'm not. But Venom: The Last Dance, if you are a fan of this series, then you're going to have a great time with this one. If you're not a fan, don't even bother, because you're not going to like this. Dumb, schlocky fun, and actually somewhat of a refreshing feel in the superhero genre. And I'm not saying that this is better than the MCU. Especially as of late, that universe is far superior than what Sony has put out with their villainous spin-offs. But in comparison to the very serious and serialized storytelling that the MCU has brought to us, and with the failure of the DCEU, this is basically like the B-movie side of the comic book genre, kind of like those sci-fi B films from the 1950s. Harmless popcorn fun that you could just sit back and have a good time with, and if you're able to turn off your brain, this is definitely the movie for you. I can easily see a lot of people having fun with this, and the people that I was in the theater with, they seem to have a good time with it. And I had some fun with it too, but I am not really a fan of the character of Venom, so I guess that doesn't really help anything. But he really deserves better treatment than what he's gotten in all the films he's been in so far. My favorite portrayal of Venom in any iteration of the Marvel Universe is last year's Spider-Man 2 from Insomniac. And the host is not even Eddie Brock. Who knew? So those are my thoughts on Venom: The Last Dance. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment below and tell me what your thoughts are on this movie if you've seen it. And as always, see you in the next one.